I thank you all for coming. I'm just going to read because I get nervous when I'm speaking in front of people, even though you're all people that I care about, and I'm grateful that you're all here. So, and after I'm done talking, if you haven't already been told, we're going to open up the floor, and anybody that wants to share a few memories of my dad, who was, I'm going to break it up, one of a kind. If I stop talking, it's because I'm joking. So let's just get that out of the way. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't know if anybody got those cards back there, but I'm referencing this in the cards. So if you haven't read it, it'll be easier to follow if you've read the cards. Okay, well, it's hard to know where to start. So, as I've done many times in my life, I let my dad be my guide. He always described himself as curious in all respects. This is, of course, was a double entendre. My dad was curious, as in Curious George. Not only did he have an extensive formal education, but he was also a lifelong learner. To him, the more you learned, the less you knew, because as your knowledge grew, so did your awareness of how much there was still to learn. He was constantly researching. Full disclosure, I fed this into ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT had this whole other version. So then I had to merge what they said with what I said.
We want the old version.
So some of this, I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't write it just like that. But ChatGPT, man, that's scary shit. Excuse me, sir, is the child? Wait, I know we have a couple kids. I'm gonna try and be, okay. Okay, where was I? He was constantly researching. That's better. Whether it was his or my mom's health or a random scientific question, he dug deep. He subscribed to the Journal of the American Medical Association. He would closely analyze and plot his blood work results, which he got every 3 months on his own. Like, he didn't have to, but he just loved to get the results and compare them and analyze them. Which is probably how he lived so long, honestly. Like, he was always on top of his health care. Inevitably, a conversation on the phone would lead to multiple follow-up emails with additional information about the various tangents our conversation took. He was particularly curious about anything science-related, why and how did things work or occur, but really was interested to learn about anything. He was a regular watcher of the great courses and explored all topics from the arts to history to the universe. He just really liked to learn. He wanted to know more. When COVID hit, we started a ritual that continued through the end of his life, Sunday Zoom calls with my brother PJ, me and my dad. At first, my dad insisted that each call have a topic. We couldn't just get together and talk. We needed like a focused thing that we were going to discuss, you know. And this was a little stressful for me because, you know, I didn't want to be embarrassed by my lack of knowledge and understanding about many things. So I would have to prepare in advance. But I appreciated the challenge. But I will say over the years, so that's what, 2020, what is it, you know, about 5 years, he kind of relaxed. And eventually we fell into the rhythm of normal family calls, which is what probably most of you are used to, where we simply shared what was happening in our lives. Despite the lack of a specific topic, our Zooms were always lively and engaging, and I'll miss them very deeply. But PJ and I are going to meet for breakfast once a month, so we don't lose touch with each other. So if you want to honor my dad, please be curious and learn something new every day. The other part of my dad's description of himself was that he was curious, as in strange or unusual. And I was, you know, these are his descriptions of himself, so I'm trying to think, what did he mean by that? I don't know. But growing up in the 50s, you know, he was a teenager who preferred classical music over rock and roll. He was always just maybe a little more sophisticated, you know, an older soul perhaps than his counterparts. He was social, but often said he preferred to be alone with his best friend. This was, you know, the mantra I heard my whole life: you are your own best friend. You know? And I said to Dad, like, you know, a lot of folks here now. I was trying to drag him to New Jersey ever since my mom passed away. He's like, I'm here with my best friend. So I was like, all right, Dad, but it'd be nice if you were here with us, but okay. He had a self-deprecating humor, but at the same time, he was very proud of who he was and what he had accomplished. So it kind of was an enigma, you know. Maybe that's why he was so curious, I don't know, in that regard. One of the things my dad wanted most was to be remembered as being humorous. This was perhaps where his strange personality shone brightest. He likened himself to Larry David. Curb Your Enthusiasm fans will know what I mean by that. He really, really identified with Larry David. You know, he's just misunderstood. We shared a special connection when it came to humor. He and I were kind of compatible on that level. A single comment from him made me laugh, even if no one else understood the joke. We were just talking about this. We're like, what was it, Richard? Phew, Richard. Like, I don't know where it came from. Like, you know, my dad had a tough last few weeks, and we'd be like, phew, Richard. And we're like, what? I don't even know. Like, I've been saying that my whole life. Anytime something like was kind of wrong, I'd be like, phew, Richard. I don't know where it came from, but anyway. He loved playing. He loved just trying to get a laugh. He would just sit there and go like, you know, he would just sit there waiting for you to notice that he had his glasses on upside down, you know. He would start walking, and all of a sudden he'd like get a weird limp, you know, out of nowhere if you were walking behind him, just to like be silly. Yeah, just make a silly face if anybody saw that out to lunch photo over there. You know, it just, you know, it just do goofy stuff. There's also a photo over there of his headstone, which he purchased years ago. And his name is engraved on it. He'll share that with his father, who died in 1945. And, you know, when Keela was little, and PJ, I think you went on separate occasions, we all went to visit his headstone. And I have a picture of him lying under the headstone, in mockery pose. So that was a sense of humor. He thought that was hilarious. He joked about recording it. He wanted like a pipe coming out of the ground where you could push a button and he would speak to you from his grave. So this was his little offbeat humor that he had. So if you want to honor my dad, don't forget to laugh at yourself a little more and look for the humor in life. My dad also described himself as generous, and PJ and I were certainly the lucky recipients of his kindness, family trips, you know, PJ more than me. No, but we went, you know, he took me and PJ to Italy when he got his big award, France, and then we went on a family trip to Italy. We went to the Bahamas. They all went rafting through the canyon. We had a number of hikes down the canyon. You know, later on, he would rent a house at the beach or the mountains and say, we'll be here for the week. You know, their 50th anniversary is like, we'll all go on a Disney cruise, and then he and my mom didn't go. But my brother and our families all had a lovely time. He was just very generous in that way, you know, with all those trips. And then after every visit to Bethel Park over the last decade, he would slip us the white envelope, which would be full of cash. Wow. Despite my repeated protest that you don't have to pay me to come see you. I want to come see you. But he's like, I don't know, he just wanted to give us money. And he did, and you know, and it was nice, but obviously not required. He also, and you know, Barbara and Linda left, but Maxine maybe, is she still there? No, she left too. He liked to tip the waitresses, very much so, like 50% plus, you know, he was in, but then he'd sit there and wait for like the appreciation to come his way. Like, did she get the tip? Is she gonna come over and hug me? Yeah, so I wasn't totally selfless. Like he did like the feedback from his very generous tipping. He might not like that I told it. Lastly, my dad described himself as blunt as a Dutchman. Culturally, the Dutch are known for their straightforward communication, which some might find rude. Although my dad lost his father at a young age, he embraced his Dutch heritage fully. That was a GPT. visiting aunts, uncles, and cousins in the Netherlands. He was known for his very direct way of speaking. One of his favorite phrases when we were children was, "Stick it in your ear!" Somebody like ticked him off. But I remember a film guy in Paris for some reason in particular. It was a little rude. When someone irritated him, some of the neighborhood, Jack maybe might remember this, some of the neighborhood kids feared him with his no-nonsense approach, especially when he ran them off his lawn, which they had turned into a makeshift football field.
Yes.
He would, I think they would see his car coming down the road and like scatter.
Run for the hills.
Because he would get out and be like, "Get the hell off my lawn!" He was very particular about his lawn. Treats it, loves his lawn. To this day.
But it was the nicest lawn down there.
Yeah, it's a nice lawn, and he loved it, and he did not want the kids playing with it. Although PJ or I, which we usually weren't, but if we were in the crowd, he would refrain from yelling at everybody. So instead, and reading various notes from old Army colleagues, college, work people, it was clear that his bluntness was well known. I might want to cover the kids' ears right now. He laughed when more than one person called him an a-hole, but it was usually done with affection. But there was a number of people that, kind of thought of him in that way, but in a kind way. So those are his descriptions of himself. I'm now adding some of my own thoughts. He had a very big influence on me, and I think PJ and other people in this room. He always emphasized the value of hard work, saying he wasn't necessarily smarter than others, he just worked harder. We have so many memories, PJ and I, of him sitting at the dining room table on weekends, surrounded by things we could not possibly understand, and working most of the weekend. He left the house every day at 6:30 in the morning and didn't get home till almost 6 o'clock at night, and he worked at the same place for 40 years. He worked in the defense industry. He always felt like he was saving the world. That was back when Russia and the nuclear arms race, and there was a lot going on when he was working, and he just felt like his contributions to the defense of the U.S., really made a difference. And, I don't know, the world's crazy. I don't know if they did, but he, I think his work, will live on. And I think his strong work ethic is something PJ and I both carry with us. My parents were also my safety net. When I had a cat I couldn't keep, my parents took him in. When I moved back to Pittsburgh, between places, I moved back in with them. When I needed help with the down payment for our house, he helped. He supported me to go to graduate school in my 40s. They were just always there. And I've come to realize that that's a privilege that not everybody has, the sense of security, to know that your parents are always going to be there. And be forever grateful for that. My dad was very organized and an excellent planner. He had a list of people and places we had to call upon his demise, down to the extension to push, to reach, press number 5 for, XYZ. In recent weeks, we reviewed all his bills that he had to pay and how they were paid. Are they automatic? Are they online? I have a whole list. He had a binder with all his passwords. Like, who does that? Like, I can't even remember, but he had every password. He planned many vacations back in the days when everything had to be done over the phone and through the mail and internet didn't exist. Once he said that sometimes the planning was far more fun than the vacation, but once he'd planned and paid for it, he guessed he had to go. I remember him saying. He paid his bills the day they arrived, serviced his cars recommended by the dealer. In recent years, when his life became a lot more limited, he really spent a lot of time thinking about his oxygen tanks. So he was on oxygen, for those of you who didn't know. He graduated from a concentrator to full-fledged bottles, and when he had to leave. So he was always worried about how much was in them. I'm getting off script. I'll just read what I wrote. So he would draw diagrams of the oxygen tanks. Not only how much was in the oxygen tanks, but where were they? Like, where in the garage were the full ones, where in the garage were the half-empty ones, so he would actually draw little charts of, where these tanks were and so forth. And he was driving his car up until a month ago. He would put the oxygen tank in the passenger seat, and go on down to the McDonald's drive-thru and sit at the park or whatever, and so he never wanted to be caught out without enough oxygen. So that he spent a lot of time thinking about his oxygen and his oxygen. I mean, there's a pulse oximeter over there. You probably appreciate all of you taking a measurement, making sure you're doing okay. But yeah, he spent a lot of time with his pulse oximeter as well. So I spent the last few weeks with my dad. He had taken a fall, which led to a pretty fast decline. Even at his worst, he was struggling to take care, when he was struggling to take care of his basic needs, he was always kind and appreciative of me, and we had a couple visiting nurses and so forth coming. But he kept his humor and intelligence. He had finally agreed to move to New Jersey and was mentally preparing for this change. He wondered how he would get his shoes on his feet, which was a requirement to go to the dining room, his nice little swanky, place we had found for him near me, 10 minutes away. But so in preparation for that, his legs were still hurting after about 3 weeks, and we're like, why? Maybe there's, one of the nurses like, maybe there's a fracture, maybe there's a clot, I don't know. And I was like, well, Dad, we should have it looked at. So in he went, and that was that. They realized his kidneys weren't doing well, and there's nothing wrong with the leg, by the way. The x-ray turned up no fracture, nothing at all. So they ended up realizing he was on the verge of kidney failure. He made the decision to stay at the hospital and enter their hospice, and 18 hours later he was gone. It was quick and I believe painless. He told me beforehand he was at peace. And he said, bring on the morphine. So he was ready. And the doctor asked what my dad had done for a living, and when I said he was an engineer, he said he was not the least surprised, and he remarked that we should all be so lucky to maintain such cognitive clarity at his age. For my dad, losing that mental sharpness would have really been a tragedy, and it's a comfort to know he made his own decisions until the end. And I have one final sentence. I'll miss my dad terribly, but I'm going to continue to honor him by learning new things, exploring new places, being a safety net for my kids, and always looking for the humor in life. So, thank
you. Good afternoon. I'm Michael. If you don't know me, I'm Pete's son-in-law, Julie's husband. I had the privilege of being Pete's son-in-law. I stand here today with a heavy heart, but also immense gratitude for having had the chance to know such an remarkable man. Pete had many qualities. Those of us who had the privilege of knowing him will remember him for his generosity, his sense of humor, and his quick wit. He was very funny. We had a lot of good times together. He was hardworking, as Julie said, and always valued his family above all else. Above all, he had a special way of making everyone feel included no matter what the situation. For me, one of the things Pete seemed to love the most was traveling, like Julie said. I'm just repeating, but I'll always cherish the trips we took together, from hiking the Grand Canyon, rafting the canyon, trip to Europe, Disney World with our kids when they were very small. Sometimes it was just a simple weekend, just a long weekend getaway. We'd call and say, oh, let's go here for the weekend. And, we were usually always on board. It was a great time. Those trips was really a testament to his love for his family. And as we gather here today, it's clear Pete's impact was not just on me, but on all of us, his children, his wife, his friends. He built a family grounded in togetherness, and I'm truly honored to have been part of it. While today is filled with sorrow, I also believe we can take comfort in knowing that Pete's spirit will live on. He may no longer be with us physically, but his legacy and his kindness, his wisdom and his love will remain in our hearts. As we say goodbye, let us hold on to the good memories, the laughter, and the love he gave so freely. Thank you.
I'll say a quick word. I'm just going to say, actually, when I think about Pete, I don't have a lot of memories of him because like Julie said, PJ, he was working a lot. and we grew up in the suburbs, and he would work a lot. And as you get older, you realize how to be a father and a mother taking care of a family is like heavy. And he lifted that and did it and carried it all those years at the same place. And because of that, what I remember is having a ton of fun. PJ and Julie in their house and just hanging out in our neighborhood. And we just had so much fun. And we were just talking about it. And why we could have that fun, because he's working hard and we're doing all the fun stuff. And he would be like, be quiet, I'm trying to work. And we'd be like, oh my God, because it was scary. It was kind of scary, it just was. But Stacy's laughing, and she said he wasn't as scary, but I was in the house and he was scary. But we just had so much fun. So my memory is to thank Pete for creating that house where I played for years. I mean, my God, we had so much fun there. So I just wanted to thank him for that and say to PJ and Julie, we were lucky.
Yeah.
We had all that time together, and with your mom and dad, they were like second parents to me. So thank you.
That's my brother. He talks a lot. I'll only say 3 things. I really enjoyed Pete as an adult. As a child, I had the same issue. I was one of those kids playing football, and it was terrifying when he would come up. We'd be like looking over, because they had a really nice flat yard, and it was the best football field that we could have. And we played so many games in that yard. We played softball, football. We threw the ball over the wire. We had like so many games. That yard was like a playground of fun, and then so I knew him as a scary man. He was very serious. It was very odd how, as a child, my perception. Yeah, as I perceived him to be this scary person. I'm like, I feel bad for Julie. Now hell is all, he comes home and they're there. I'm terrified. But when I grew up, I was terrified. We were like, how is Julie and PJ, how are they dealing? We need an intervention. No. I'm overplaying it. But he gets to be an adult, I got to be an adult, and then got to know him as a professional because I went to work in the same industry that he did. I became an engineer. He worked at Bettis in West Mifflin on nuclear power plants, and I worked on nuclear power plants in Monroeville. We worked together. Bettis and our division worked together to buy power plants and put in aircraft carriers and submarines. So I learned about your dad professionally doing the same thing he was doing. And it was just, what a revelation to get to know this person who seems scary and frightening as a professional. And we would have professional conversations about our job as engineers. And so that was very interesting, a little sublime, a little strange. And then he and the family would come up to our house. We lived very close together, and we would do Christmas and Thanksgiving and various holidays and compare Christmas trees and all these things. And he was, and you and your mom, him and your mom were so much fun. We would play charades.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just a scream. And Mr. Kreyns was, and there's Mr. Kreyns for a long time. He was so serious, but when he played some of these games, it was just hilarious. It was like he was a totally different person. And as an adult, I really, really appreciate your dad. And I'm sad to hear he passed. He left a good legacy.
I wrote something. I'm gonna add, the one thing that's on here is it's consistent, because it's gonna be exactly everything you all just heard. But I spent a lot of, I'm Julie's friend. 3 houses up the street, for anyone that doesn't know. But I spent a lot of time at the Kreyns house growing up. And I'm guessing that Mr. Kreyns shook his head a lot when he came home from work, and there would be kids was all over the yard. It's very consistent.
Yeah.
But that's the hazard of having a house in the corner, especially by bus stop.
Yeah.
But one memory that makes me laugh is the night that he decided to teach us how to properly play tricks on a night.
Oh!
It was very incognito, and those details are under wraps between him, Julie, and I. Another good memory is that for a stint, the four of us, Mr. and Mrs. Kreyns, Julie and me, played bridge together. It was very old school. We would sit at the card table and folding chairs like folks of their generation, and I loved playing cards, and I really enjoyed it. But when I think of Mr. Kreyns, three adjectives come to mind: understated, blunt honesty, and humor. I swear everybody's in this. I always thought Mr. and Mrs. Kreyns were understated, as we would often stumble upon something in conversation, I guess as an adult more.
Yeah.
And I would learn something interesting, some interesting experience they had that I would have never imagined. It always made me wonder what else we never talked about. But an example is I was satellite working from his office once as an adult, and I noticed a picture of a submarine on the wall. I was just making conversation and asked if he liked submarines. Because I was the clueless kid who just played in the house. I don't know. But he just stopped and said, "You really have no idea what I do for a living." Which I didn't. And then he explained that he worked to actually power the submarines with nuclear energy. And wow, that is not ordinary or something you just stumble across every day. But his blunt honesty surfaced in just about every conversation we ever had together. I don't think that he had much time for fools, and it always served to pivot the conversation in some way. And he always made me laugh. That likely was connected to the blunt honesty at times. He would just cut me off with, "Are you serious? Do you not know?" And then he always managed to make me laugh. But I am grateful for the time we had together over the years and how he influenced my life. I look forward to remembering him as I travel along Dashwood Drive, as I observe someone else's blunt honesty and his mannerisms to
Okay, I think that's it. Anybody else? If you want. No pressure.
Hi everyone, my name is Todd. My family and I were Peter's neighbors. We only knew him for the past 5 years of his life. We knew him as Pete. Today I learned how to pronounce his last name. So that was nice. We never had the opportunity to get yelled at for playing on his But it is true, he even though he couldn't take care of his lawn anymore, he had a service come by and take care of it. I know he took great pride in it. So he was everything you would want in a neighbor and a friend. He was always so kind and inviting, and we would always wave and say hi to my wife and I and our children. And I'm going to miss him as a neighbor and a friend. And I know his favorite cookie was oatmeal raisin, a cookie I was not particularly a fan of, but I would always take time to bake him some cookies once or twice a year and take them over to him. And then he would always ask me to thank my wife for baking the cookies. So, Peter, Mr. Kreyns, I will miss you. And Julie and Peter, our condolences. Thank you.
Well, if I spoke, it would be very off.
Would you like to? Barbara's known my dad more longer than anybody.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't let your kids pressure you, stop it. But you don't have to.
Come on, Mom, get up there.
No.
That's okay.
Alright, too much pressure. I do want to say, because Brian went on how scary he was, my dad helped me deliver the newspapers, my dad taught me tennis, my dad played catch with me, like, so it wasn't all. He did work a lot, but he definitely spent time, he went to all of our events, whatever we were doing, the 3-hour chorus concerts, you know, we'd probably have smoking in the, you know. But no, my dad was, you know, he was a balance. He was definitely a balance. He wasn't, we didn't need protective, Brian. We really didn't.
It was just the kids were nervous, not the,
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah, no.
He was tall and we were little. And
Yeah.
He had a deep voice.
You had a little anger situation
Yeah.
going. You had a little anger situation. He really mellowed as he
I remember
aged, for
sneaking
sure.
up the stairs
Yeah.
and he would be laying on the couch. And it was a Sunday, and Sundays you were not, no kids were allowed in the house. And we would creep up the stairs, and if he heard it, he would rise up and then get out, and you were just terrified.
Yeah, creaking up the stairs.
You don't remember that?
Yeah, that's
I
it.
blocked it out. That's traumatizing.
We remember.
I would go out on dates and he would always wake up, you know, he would always be there when I got home to make sure I got home safely.
Yeah.
I mean,
He just saved it for us.
he did. He didn't like it.
I'm joking. I know. Oh, no.
Anyway, I guess we'll wrap this thing up, but thank you so much. My dad will be sorely missed,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you coming to celebrate his life. And we're gonna go, anybody can come, we're going to Alice Cafe at 6:30. I got a table for like 20 to 25 people, so that's like everybody here. So if anybody can come, please do. My father would love to host you all one last time, so, you know, please come if you're able.
Alice Cafe was his second home.
Yeah, oh my God, my parents lived at Alice Cafe. Anyway, thank you everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing all the stories today. And while leaving, we're going to listen to one of his favorite songs, which is appropriate, Leaving on a Jet Plane. So thank you, everybody.